Hello guys, welcome to Kweku Tech. If today is your first time here, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button and the notification icon below. So today we'll be talking about the state of the tech industry in Ghana, and I have with me James, who is a co-founder of ADPList. Because he is a co-founder and a Ghanaian, I would like to ask him some few questions to tell us how we can improve the tech industry here in Ghana. James, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So you are from Ghana. Which part of Ghana are you?
I'm from Adan. My dad is an Ewe. My mom is an Adan, but we lived mostly in Adan. So you find me speaking Adan and telling people I'm an Adan. So
F1.
yeah,
Okay. Okay, so how do you see the tech industry?
um, I mean, I mean, from my perspective and with the little experience I have, I think it's still budding, but I think I see a lot of potential from people I have conversations with, things I'm seeing that are coming out. So yeah, I think the tech industry in Ghana is growing, not there yet, because I see a lot of issues with collaboration, which is something that's really, if tech ecosystems want to thrive, should rely on a lot. But I don't see that happening as much. But yeah, I think there is still good potential in the tech industrial space in Ghana. Yeah.
So what do you think we can do as Ghanaian to improve our tech system here?
Yeah, that's a very big question. There are a lot of things we can do. Obviously, starts from higher authority regulations and government support and external support and policies and all of those stuff. Obviously, those are not my areas. I think I'm more into collaboration and working with people. And so, one of the things I keep telling people is for us to get there, right, or for people to take us serious, they might see that we are not against each other. We work together, right? Because I've tried a lot of things myself. I've worked with a lot of people, and there is so much gatekeeping happening. You realize that the bigger companies are either stealing the ideas of smaller companies, and not necessarily helping them. But what I see in the West, and especially in Asia as well, is most of the companies that know or that meet or sort of interact with smaller companies or founders that have good ideas, invest in them, right? And the thing is, it doesn't take so much to invest in a small idea for it to become big. But we are not seeing that. There's so much gatekeeping here where you share an idea with somebody senior, those pioneers, and then before you realize, they propose that to the government or propose that to their teams, and they build it because they have the resources and what it takes to do it. And that has affected so many startups, so many founders I know, and people are losing faith. And so, one of the things I always tell people is if we collaborate more, work together, it's really going to help. People externally are watching, right? You'll be surprised the number of people that know much about Ghanaian tech ecosystem than even the Ghanaians here. Right? People are doing so much research because they believe that Africa is sort of the next sort of place where most of these tech advancements are happening. India has had their time and all of those stuff. It's not Africa. And so if we don't collaborate, people are not going to take us serious. You realize that companies will come in, bigger companies will just come and buy one startup and they're done.
Yeah.
They just pump their monies into that startup. But then if we work together, you realize that we have an ecosystem that is going to thrive. Think Silicon Valley, right? It's startups working together, collaborating, sharing ideas, growing together. I don't see so much of that here. And I think that's one of the secrets to actually building a more vibrant tech ecosystem in Ghana.
Okay, let me also ask you this question. Why is it that when most foreign companies, like most foreigners, come to Ghana here in the field of tech, they come and they flourish very well, but the local companies do not flourish well?
Yeah, there are so many things actually. I think one of the things is we don't understand much about product development, right? Product development has a lot of things to consider: research, design, engineering best practices, and even human resource management, right? One, people don't take developers or designers serious. Yeah, most founders don't think they think they can just buy you off and they own your life and all of those things. Developers don't work under best, they don't do their best work under a scenario where they feel used, right? And Anytime I speak with people, they're like, okay, this guy just interested in using me. They don't want to do their work. They just do something for you, right? And you find most of the developers and designers around doing freelance because they don't want to commit to anybody. And I'm a personal like testimony to that, right? That's one thing. Another thing has to do with research. We don't do a lot of research in product development. You realize that somebody comes to you and they already have an idea in mind that they are sticking to that, and then they just want to do it. And the idea is so big that there is no plan and structure to it. They just want you to build, and they want it done in 2 weeks, right? So, we don't do as much research to understand the context and even our culture and how people perceive products. We don't do much research into that. Another thing is usually the founders are too ambitious. They believe too much in the product or the ideas rather than actually learning about what the user needs, right? This falls back on research as well. Being a designer and a researcher, I understand that user needs are primal to anything that you build. And if you ignore that, it's really going to help hurt your product. Most companies out there have a huge budget for doing research. Before they come, Uber and the rest, they do a lot of market research. They do a lot of research before even penetrating or coming to the market, and realize that when they come, things just work. Right? They know the right people, they've had the right conversations, they have the right roadmap and timelines, marketing budget and all of those stuff. But we don't do that, right? Another thing too has to do with design. We don't take design seriously. Yeah, and design is really changing a lot, right? Gone are the days where it's like you just need a developer to get a product done. You use a template somewhere that's done by somebody else. But now design is very essential to understanding what actually the users need, right? And so if you don't spend much time understanding things and designing the right experience, it becomes a problem. One thing I think a friend of mine always says is that the African context is very, very important for people to understand, right? You realize that somebody gets up and they are trying to build the next Uber for Ghana or Africa. It won't work. It just doesn't work like that. Imagine you are building AI system. Like nobody cares about that right now. People want basic needs to be met, right? How many people actually use like AI systems here to power their like? Just a few people use automated houses and all of this stuff, right? But then what are the core problems? When you go to the grassroots, what are the problems? What's the African context, right? How we do things, how things matter to us, what are the problems we are facing, right? When you understand those things, you are able to solve the problems that people need. Among others, I think in summary, I would say we really don't take our time to understand things before going ahead. And that's what most foreign companies do. They spend a lot of time trying to understand things before making any extra investments into them.
Yeah. Okay. I also realized one thing that the tech companies here in Ghana don't pay really well. But those foreign companies who come to Ghana to establish, they pay their developers very well. And with that, most developers choose not to work like well with the Ghanaian
local companies.
Yes, then it end up collapsing. So is the pay? So what happens? What really happens that those kind of that they don't pay those developers very well?
Yeah. So I think there are two sides to this, right? When for an African company or a Ghanaian company, right? When you look at their revenue that they make year on year, right? Most of the companies that usually come from outside are well-established companies. So, for instance, Google, Amazon, Google coming, Twitter coming recently. Twitter has so much money for hiring. The budget is so huge, so they can afford to just hire anybody on that high budget. And nobody wants to receive small money, obviously. And so even though most people working for those companies don't necessarily believe in the mission and goals or vision of this founder, they just want to work because of the money, right? That's another thing. For local companies, right, they obviously the budget cannot be compared. Most companies pay in USD. We make our money in Ghana cedi. And now you know the rates, right? It's like if I pay you 1,000 cedis and somebody pays you $1,000, that's times 14 of Ghana cedis, right? And so who wouldn't choose USD, right? And that's one reason why most companies don't pay well, especially in the companies in Africa or Ghana. That's not to give an excuse that you should pay Ghanaians or local people less. Obviously, there are so many factors to consider when hiring globally, right? And then there are standard rates to actually which hiring is made. Obviously, when you go to Silicon Valley, the rates there are different. When you come to Accra, the rates here are different. But then there are standard rates that a developer should earn. And most companies out here sometimes have the money, but they feel like, okay, because you are in Ghana, because I'm paying you in Ghana cedis, you don't necessarily do, and they use the excuse of, okay, we are not a US company, we are a Ghana company. That's not an excuse, right? If you have the budget genuinely, right, you have to give people what they deserve. Another thing is, I know a lot of developers who will be willing to work with people for less pay. That is if the founder's vision is legit or makes more sense, or the founder cares about the people they are working with. I work with a lot of people, even at ADPList, that obviously they are receiving on the lower side, right, as compared to the global rate. But then they are still stuck to the company. Why? They believe in a vision, they believe in what they are doing, right? Something that drives them to do what they are doing. And I know a lot of senior developers that are only driven by the kind of vision the founder has. It doesn't matter how much you pay them. They are probably just coming for the money and then they'll leave in a few months because they've earned enough to leave, right? But then there are those who believe in the mission that it doesn't necessarily matter how much you pay them, because they believe this, again, is going a long way to impact the amount of lives that in an exponential manner, right? And so that's another thing as well. But I think primarily the main excuse for most companies is because you are in Ghana and you are not in the US and all of those things. So they use that as an excuse to not pay you well, and it's a bad practice actually.
Well, so what can software engineers here in Ghana do so that those companies can pay them like their wages? Because most of them feels like they are Ghanaians, you are just from school, so let's pay you maybe 500 cedis or 600 cedis.
Yeah. I think this starts from, and I know a lot of software engineers who have become founders are still paying software engineers like they don't deserve it, right? It starts from us, right? We need to learn to cherish and value our talents out here. I work with a lot of founders who don't pay developers much, and they were developers before, and they were in the same situation before, asking for more money, asking that they deserve it. But then they become founders, and it's like all of those things are gone, right? So it starts from the founders. You need to value the skills and efforts. It's not easy to learn how to code, even HTML, right? It's not easy. And so learning to value the effort it takes into that is the most important thing right now. Because even if somebody values you, right, when somebody values and cherishes the value you bring on board, even if they are not paying you, or you see it, right, you see it and you are motivated to actually even do more. But most of the founders don't value that. And for the developers, I think one important thing is most developers become complacent easily. I know one language, I can understand the fundamentals of programming, data structures, and so I think I'm good enough. No, you are not, right? You need to improve, you need to grow, you need to learn, because new technology, every single day there is something new. They are releasing something new, and you need to learn, you need to be on top of your skill, right? And this is done by actively learning new things, actively like learning from people through mentorship and other things, right? That is how you develop yourselves. And also building more projects, working on more projects. It doesn't have to be a real project or anything. Or another thing is actually working on personal impact projects, right? Again, I keep talking about impact. That is how most people see value, right? If anybody wants to invest in you or a company, they want to understand the impacts you are making. And this goes a long way to hiring as well. There are so many developers out there. What makes you think you are better than the millions of developers out there, right? It's basically around some of the impacts and things you worked on. And so when you want to be seen as the valuable designer you are, or developer you are, or engineer, you need to showcase how much work you can do, what your experiences are, and how much impact you've made on the community.
Thank you very much for the time. The last words for Ghanaians watching us, founders and developers.
I think for founders, we need to be realistic about our ideas, realistic about our timelines and the kind of things we want to do. It's not always about the money, right? Learn to make impact, do your research, understand African context, and then before actually building anything. And for designers, developers, everybody else, I think keep learning. And also volunteer for community work. Join communities, very, very important. And also get a mentor to guide you, because there are so many things you can learn and avoid by actually speaking with somebody who has more experience than you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your
Sure.
time. Your social media handles again.
So my name is James Badour. On LinkedIn, you can just search for James Badour. Twitter is JMS Badour, and Instagram James Badour. So, yeah.
Okay. Guys, thank you very much for your time. Please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button and the notification icon below. Peace.